I asked several people to speak this morning on how volunteering has changed them. So it's not just about the nuts and bolts of your actual volunteer job. It is about how that creates change within us or deepens what's already there. So we're going to start with Bruce DePriester coming forward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I now know you're very versatile. You're good at taking as well as giving, so that was good. But now I'd like to talk more about the giving part. We just read a covenant as follows: love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. I've never quite figured out service is its prayer, and it may go along with what Reverend Margot talked about ministry. But what I'd like to talk about today is what service has meant to me relative to this church. Sharon and I joined the church a few years ago because it felt like a community that we'd enjoy. After a couple years, I decided to dip my toe in the service piece by joining the finance committee. Pretty innocuous, not a big commitment. And look what's happened, but the finance committee did some important things and kept its eye on the fellowship's money, which I think is a pretty important role. In the summer of 2017, there were some concerns about financial record keeping within the church and some uncertainty about our finances. And our minister at the time, Reverend Duffy, was pretty concerned about it. So I believe he called the meeting of the finance committee, including himself, and we sat down and talked about it. What is it not working? What are some of the issues, and how are we going to resolve them? So we get through that discussion, and naturally the next step is, well, how are we going to get this done? How are we going to do this? And we're sitting at a table, so it's not the traditional where everybody's lined up and everybody else steps back. But it certainly felt like everybody else ducked under the table somehow. And the new guy got to be the chair. And I really wasn't objecting, but it was a little bit of surprise. I didn't anticipate that was going to be the outcome. So we worked as the finance committee to try to identify where we needed to improve. And the finance committee figured out the issues. We did a kind of a low-key audit of what had happened with our expenses and how they had been, how some things had gotten mixed up a little bit. We were very fortunate and very happy that we didn't find that any money had disappeared anywhere, which is always an issue when you're a financial person. You think about that. But our problems were that there was just not the proper handling of some of our expenses and money, and it all looked good in the end. So as things went on, I started working with another person within the church, and I don't think she's a member, but Christy Huddleston is the coordinator for the administrative coordinator. And so I started working with her because there were some pretty basic problems in how we get invoices in, paid them, and all those processes. So we worked together for a few years and put some processes together that I think are working for the most part, and we use them today. But this was a great outcome because we felt like we got something done, but I also made a new friend, and I got to know someone else in the church, and someone who has a lot to offer. So I think that's one of the benefits I've seen with being involved with service in the church, is you meet people, you get a new group of friends, you get people you get to know in depth, and I look at Elizabeth, and I didn't know Elizabeth very well until we were on the board together this year. So I think that's one of the true benefits out there. A couple years ago, I took what I think is a bigger step into the world of this church and became a member of the board. Probably not something I was necessarily looking for, but we needed to get some things done, and I became the treasurer, which is also has a board responsibility. So here there was an opportunity to learn some more and a chance to work with some great folks who I hadn't known very well. The scope not only included this church, but also UUA. Here I'm going to be politically correct and not talk about my views of UUA. But I will just say they're an interesting bunch, and I'll leave it at that. The board position was more difficult because we live in California for about half the year, and Zoom is a tough way to attend a board meeting when you're the only one on Zoom. But we seemed to make it work, and I think I was able to contribute to the board and its successes and also to some of its failures. So the question I want to address is, why should you join a committee or chair a committee or even join the board? Based on my own experience, getting involved helps you meet members of the fellowship and develop friendships which enrich your experience in the fellowship. Also, you get a chance to feel the satisfaction of helping the church and helping move things forward with your service. And finally, UUFB needs great people to make it a great fellowship. And all of you are those great people that we need. So my ask today is that you think about taking the step to provide more of your service or your services to help the fellowship. I'm confident you'll learn, you'll make new friends, and you will be glad that you could contribute more to the fellowship. Thank you.
Good morning, I have to say that. Okay. I already said that to lots of people. I entitled this my spiritual practice. I've been part of the fellowship for a little over 22 years. And I knew from the beginning when I read the principles and I saw the mission, I met some of you, and I heard Lois speak. I knew that I would be free here to explore my spiritual journey with your kind and loving support. When I volunteered to sing in the occasional choir, and I was asked to be on the Sunday service committee, I felt privileged and joyful as I began to feel like I was a real part of this community. When I was later asked to be on the board, I was truly honored. You trusted me to care for this fellowship and do the best to make good decisions and important decisions, and I've served on the board 3 times. The idea of care kept coming to me, and when I care for something, I need to be a part of it. This is a caring community. We take care of each other, we help one another, and there is such joy in that. Joy is a big thing for me. We say, and Bruce mentioned it too, we say the covenant every morning. We reaffirm our commitment to each other. And I love hearing all the voices as you say the covenant. It's like a mantra for me for inner peace. Being on the committees and on the board has allowed me to express these feelings of joy and of caring for all of you. What being of service gives me is a sense of putting my spiritual journey into action. It becomes my spiritual practice. From that practice comes a feeling of a deeper connection to this fellowship and to the individuals with whom I serve. We build relationships as we go about our work. We become friends. I have been reading a book, Serving with Grace, Lay Leadership as a Spiritual Practice, and I'd like to share just a couple of things that really spoke to me from this book. I had the page marked. Hang on, here we go. This is from a member explaining why he tithes. And as I read this, think of tithe as also time and energy. So I will read this. To tithe is to tell the truth about who I am. If I did not tithe, it would say that I was a person who had nothing to give, a person who had received nothing from life, a person who did not matter to the larger society, or whose life's meaning was in providing for his own needs alone. But in fact, who I am is the opposite of all these things. I am a person who has something to give. I am a person who has received abundantly from life. I am a person whose presence matters in the world. And I'm a person whose life has meaning because I am connected to and care about the things larger than myself. If I did not tithe, I would lose track of these truths about who I am. I want to read just a little bit more. This was all very important to me. Work devoted to something greater than yourself lifts you out of the narrow sphere of individual concerns, enlarges your perspective, and provides context for the joys and concerns of your own life. It is a reality check, bringing us constantly back to the truth of our seventh principle, in which we affirm the interconnected web of all existence. No lay leader gets to act alone. It means working for and with a group of people who have intertwining needs, hopes, fears, and expectations, all to help fulfill a common mission that binds them together. What better opportunity to learn over and over again that we are mutually interdependent. Lay service means claiming your own strand of the interdependent web while honoring the needs of others. It means being a first-hand witness to the power of diversity united in a single mission. Serving on the board is a spiritual practice for me because it's a way of giving back to the community that gives so much to me. It carries me further on my own spiritual journey, and I thank you all for that. And I thank you for the service of so many of you who give to this fellowship. I really appreciate how much you care. I'm going to close with the words of Unitarian minister Edward Everett Hale. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something I can. Thank you.
I want to just say ditto to Bruce and Elizabeth. They kind of said it all here. So I agreed to become president of the fellowship for a few practical reasons. First, I work in private nonprofit a lot, and I knew that leading the fellowship would give me more experience with developing budgets, running meetings, and working with staff members. Second, I thought that I would get to know more of our members on many levels in the context of leadership, special projects and events, committee work, and just personally. Third, I have been a member of this fellowship for 20 plus years and figured that it was my time to step up and serve. Finally, I have skills and experience in meeting facilitation, and I thought that I might be able to make board meetings shorter, more productive, and a practice which would hopefully radiate out to the rest of the fellowship. At this point, I think that I have reached many of those goals, and I still have a year to go as past president. I am looking forward to it. When someone asks me why I'm a Unitarian Universalist, I usually tell them that my primary reason is community. I want to be part of a community where people are not tied to set beliefs, but have good values. I want to know people who have differing opinions and the ability to change their opinions when presented with new questions or new evidence. For me, UUFB provides a home base for learning and exploring with all of you in the wider community. Lately, and because of my service as president, I have been thinking about Unitarian Universalism and UUFB from the wider lens of the moral challenges of our time. I hope that UUFB and UUism can be institutions that will amplify our efforts to address marriage equality, climate change, social justice, individual rights, the common good, and now, very importantly, the future of democracy in America and globally. Our fifth principle affirms the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in the society at large. In 1945, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote, "Democracy is not merely majority rule based on the fact that the majority has the physical force to prevail. It rests upon the fact that when we have proven knowledge interpreted through the experience of a large number of individuals, it is possible through this pooled knowledge and experience to come to decisions much more fundamental and much more far-reaching than can be had in any other way. The people participating effectively in this pool of democracy must be alive and well. They must know the world which they are interpreting, and they must know themselves." Democracy is always a messy business, and even at its best, it is never perfect. As Winston Churchill, it is the Winston Churchill service, said, or may have said, lots of things were attributed to him that he didn't say, but this is a good quote. "Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others." Like many other values, democracy begins at home, in this case, our home, UUFB. As your president, I was and will always be committed to the democratic processes required to administer our fellowship. Just a few examples, the UUA and many congregations across the nation are doing a lot to support democracy in America. Efforts such as UU the Vote, a nonpartisan initiative, inviting UUs to work on broadening participation in democracy while elevating UU justice priorities nationally, was launched in 2020. In that year alone, UU the Vote reached more than 3 million potential voters. Here at home, I applaud our Social Justice Action Committee for their support of democratic principles in our community and our state. And one fine example is the support of Bozeman Tenants United. While specific actions and initiatives are essential and must be expanded, we can't just sit around. I think that our greatest value may be merely providing some alternatives. It's not about being right or wrong, but rather, here's another way to think about this, another way to react, another way to act. In essence, just being here, I think, is a huge contribution. In turn, we must be willing to listen, to learn, to understand, and to find common ground. By serving on the board, I hope that I have played a tiny part in supporting the alternatives that UUFB can provide for our community and our state. Thank you for the opportunity to be of service to this beloved fellowship. It has been an honor and a privilege to do so, and I don't know how else to explain it, but somehow it has given me a sense of peace, and that's the best word I can think of for it. So, thank you.